when our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with the loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our heart stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
Welcome to the online worship service of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Hillsborough. My name is Lou Gadol, and I am your worship coordinator for today. Before we begin, I would like to thank some people. First, I would like to thank Anna Jean Mayhew, also known as AJ, for being our speaker today. AJ is a valued member of our congregation and an excellent writer. She's written 2 novels, Tomorrow's Bread and The Dry Grass of August. She won the Sir Walter Raleigh Award for Fiction and was a Saiba Book Award finalist. I would also like to thank Wendy Calvin, our producer, Aviva Enoch, our music coordinator, and the many wonderful singers who will be featured throughout the service. Most of all, I'd like to thank you for joining us. Each week, we take a monetary offering to support our social justice work in the community. This support comes in the form of donations. This month, our community partner we will share the collection with is New Hope Elementary School. Please give generously as shown on the screen. Thanks. Now let's ready ourselves for worship together by telling you who we are and why we gather. We are a community of liberal, open-minded people who strive to connect with one another in love. Our spiritual home is located at 1710 Old NC-10 Highway, but our community stretches far and wide with loved ones who join us from all over the country as we engage in Sunday worship online. We are a people defined by covenant, not creed. That means that we have committed to a way of being with one another rather than to a statement of belief. To that end, we support each other in spiritual growth and deepening of faith. We challenge one another to find more love, both inside ourselves and in the world. And today we welcome you with open arms to our house of worship. Thanks for joining us.
A New Story into Being by Reverend Dr. David Breeden. We tender this flame, opening the book, turning to a page yet to be written, opening a story yet to be told. May we fill this fresh page wisely. May we write a new story into being. May we together inscribe the page with hope.
This is a reading, is a quote from the Oxford Companion to World Mythology. Religious stories are holy scripture to believers, narratives used to support, explain, or justify a particular system's rituals, theology, and ethics, and are myths to people of other cultures or belief systems. It is difficult to believe that the Buddha was conceived in a dream by a white elephant, so we call that story a myth as well. But of course, stories such as the parting of the Sea of Reeds for the fleeing Hebrews, Muhammad's night journey, and the dead Jesus rising from the tomb are just as clearly irrational narratives to which a Hindu or a Buddhist might understandably apply the word myth. All of these stories are definable as myths because they contain events that contradict both our intellectual and physical experiences of reality.
We come from the fire, living in the fire. Go back to the fire, turn the world around. We come from the water, living in the water. Go back to the water, turn the world around. We come from the mountain, living on the mountain. Go back to the mountain, turn the world around. Whoa, so is life. Ah, so is life. Whoa, so is life. Ah, so is life. Do you know who I am? Do I know who you are? See we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? Do you know who I am? Do I know who you are? See we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? See you know who I am? Do you know who clearly? See we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? Whoa, so is life a batiwa. So is life. Whoa, so is life a batiwa. So is life. Water make the river, river wash the mountain. Fire make the sunlight turn the world around. Heart is of the river, body is the mountain. Spirit is the sunlight, turn the world around. We are of the Spirit, truly of the Spirit. Only can the Spirit turn the world around. Whoa, so is life a batiwa. Ha, so is life. Whoa, so is life a batiwa. Ha, so is life. Whoa, so is life a batiwa. Ha, so is life. Whoa, so is life a batiwa. Ha, so is life.
This reading is Let Us Drink from the Stories That Sustain Us All by Reverend Scott Taylor. We gather as a house of stories. As we learn of those who have gone before, the way in front of us becomes more clear. As we weave together the tales of who we are, our loneliness lessens and the web of our oneness is revealed. As we listen deeply in those times of tender trust, we descend into the longings and learnings, hopes and fears of the humanity we share. Beneath the wells from which we drink, there is a deeper well that feeds them all. Come, let us tell each other tales of our thirst.
Ours is a welcoming community where we find connection, a sharing community where our joys are celebrated, and a caring community where our sorrows are lessened. Each Sunday, we take a moment to share and reflect on the special happenings that have occurred this week in our lives. For those of you who'd like to share in the comments or the chat, please do. And know that everything shared aloud or felt in silence is held dearly in the heart of this community.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Good morning. In issue 4 of the 2016 journal Religion is a piece titled Thematic Issue on Religion and Fiction. The guest editor is Dr. Marcus Altina Davidson, university lecturer in the Sociology of Religion at Leiden University, the Netherlands. An excerpt from the article says, in some cases, popular fiction not only inspires belief, but also prompts readers and viewers to engage in religious practices that incorporate the story world into their own lives. For example, members of Jediism, a new religious movement based on George Lucas's Star Wars saga, aim to live spiritual and ethical lives according to the Jedi Code, and perform rituals, mainly meditation, but sometimes also prayer, to communicate with the Force. Jediism is just one example of a fiction-based religion. Others include the Church of All Worlds, which has taken its name and several ritual practices from Robert A. Heinlein's science fiction novel, Stranger in a Strange Land, and religion based on J.R.R. Tolkien's literary mythology. In sum, fantasy and science fiction have taken over many of the functions that we normally associate with institutionally sanctioned religious texts. End of excerpt. I've always thought it odd that Christianity, or Christianity as I think of it, is based on the life of Jesus of Nazareth, aka Jesus Christ, but that his birth comes at the end of the Bible, the last 300 pages of a 1,300-page book. And as for story, what could be more gripping than that of a girl riding on a donkey, led by her husband as she goes into labor? There's no room at the inn, so they shelter in a stable where she lies in the straw and gives birth to a baby who becomes a remarkable man, like his father. And by father, I mean Joseph, who never gets enough cred. A boy himself, certain that Mary had betrayed him, he nonetheless stays with her. Drama, pathos, the mystery of a virgin giving birth. Did Christianity evolve from that story? The poem that is my message today tells of a story that became a book of a pure fiction that inspires the creation of a new religion. And in the poem, the author of the book, who wrote it in all silliness, is stunned when his readers take it in all seriousness. Milton Block, author of The Shroud of Twitchy, wrote all his life from his teens to his death at age 74, took great delight in making hamburger out of holy cows. Milton was director of the Mint Museum of Charlotte from the mid-70s until 1991, when he became president of the Munson Williams Proctor Art Institute in Utica, New York. During his 14-year tenure at the Mint, the museum tripled the size of its permanent collection. It housed one of the finest holdings of 19th and 20th century art, according to John Howitt of the Metropolitan Museum. Milton and I met when he began dating my friend, Mary Karen Valines, and a year or so later, I was a witness at their marriage. I worked with Milton editing his book, Managing Nonprofit and For-Profit Organizations, Tools, Tips, and Tactics, which includes such gems as, give me a dozen PowerPoint charts and a laser pointer, and in just 15 minutes, I can send a room full of people into an irreversible coma. His creative energy knew no boundaries, and his art gravitated toward the offbeat. Here are just a few examples. Wood carving. A double-billed crow who lives on Siamese or conjoined worms. Sculpting with clay. A fish frog, or a frogfish, whatever floats your boat. A painting, it's pastel, that I call Confrontation. Milton hadn't titled it, so I don't know what he called it. And jewelry. The earrings and necklace. Just for fun, I'm also wearing a bracelet made by Mary Karen. I cherish a wide variety of published works of Milton's, in particular this one, which is volume 2 of a 3-volume set titled A Garden of Weeds. It's the collected and annotated writings of Milton J. Block. This one covers 1950 to 2000. Given my interest in the methods of other writers, I appreciated this note about how Milton came to write Twitchy. As one of about 50 international museum guests of the West German government, I was touring Germany for 9 days on a luxurious Mercedes coach. As we drove down the Rhine from Hildesheim to Cologne, I wrote most of the major parts of this poem on scraps of paper and napkins and assembled it later at home. So here we go. Wow, I've been wanting to share this poem with others ever since I first read it 30-some years ago. The Shroud of Twitchy, 1978. Book 1, Creation. I had a cat named Twitchy, a delightful little thing. She was playful, she was witchy, she was full of dart and spring. Full of feline bouncing, bumping, she could leap so very high that I'd jest about her jumping, saying she could nearly fly. She seemed to read my thoughts and mood like she had ESP, and should I even think of food, she'd be there instantly. She gave me so much pleasure that I wrote a little book about my furry treasure, but what a turn it took. I loved the catchy phrasing, my flying psychic cat, but it really was amazing how things happened after that. At first, I was delighted just to have them publish it, then terribly excited when the book became a hit. Well, I made a mound of money, which should take me rather far, but it didn't seem so funny when the whole scene turned bizarre. There were twitchy hats and glasses, t-shirts, posters, welcome mats. There were gurus teaching classes on the ways of super cats. There were fan clubs, there were zealots, cards and letters by the tower. There were notes from priests and prelates, crazy phone calls every hour. Book 2, Deification. So, all things being equal, and to keep the mob at bay, I wrote a stunning sequel in which Twitchy passed away. It was total fabrication, but should a whitish lie be the key to my salvation, then I thought it worth a try. So I wrote about the ugly way such evil plots are hatched, as on the cruel and crushing day my Twitchy cat was snatched. Yes, tossed upon the highway in nubby burlap sack, and a truck that fateful Friday ran across the poor thing's back. Well, you simply can't imagine how my harmless little game could ignite such roaring passion. Such was Twitchy's grasp on fame. There were texts and tomes and verses meant to fathom all of it. There was outrage. There were searches for the corpus of my kit. Appalling theories would arise. More sects and cults and strife were founded on my cat's demise than ever on her life. Although there were a few around who swallowed not a word, the Twitchyites would shout them down before they could be heard. Book 3, Investigation. The faithful, finally feeling pressed for objectivity, required a remnant to attest to their validity. They found it with assistance of a numerologist who claimed through sheer persistence he'd found clues the others missed. It goes like this. You count each line within my little book, which totals 789. You only have to look. By simple calculation, you divide this by the sum of all the pagination, and you get 201. So he scoured Highway 201, and though it sounds inane, before a simple day was done, he found a blocked up drain. And when a boulder was removed, a sack lay on the ground. To almost everyone this proved a relic had been found. The skeptics waxed hysterical and howled that any cat run over by a vehicle and stuffed into a sack could scarce escape a drainage pipe occluded by a stone. Believers said a super twitch could handle that alone. Why, such a wondrous super cat with extra sense perception and powers to fly and things like that was just such an exception. So it finally was decided that a very special group of experts who resided at the Twitchy Institute should solve the awesome mystery contained within the sack and bear its tragic history relating to my cat. With microscope and patience, they examined warp and weft, recording all striations on the right and on the left. And close examination under ultraviolet light revealed discoloration, indicating Twitchy's plight. What fits together neatly is a most distinctive stain. They say conforms completely to the way she must have lain. And other smudges on the sack the chemists now explain as tire tracks on Twitchy's back, which caused that ghastly stain. Within the bag, precisely, there were 37 hairs, which corresponded nicely to a bright idea of theirs. For all the Twitchy sages say it's purely by design that 37 pages formed that second book of mine. Book 4, Deviation. The Twitchers built their churches, but they too had their divisions, and despite intensive purges, they could not suppress revisions. Like the cult in California, which obtained a length of twine from the holy sack's right corner and placed it in their shrine. In their mystic scrolls, they've written that it's just the type of string that is used to truss a kitten, and for them, that solves the thing. And skeptics kept on bellowing that all supposed new facts were only found by fellow students of the Twitchy tracks. The Institute's position, which it seemed to feel was strong in the face of this sedition, was, "You cannot prove us wrong." Yet it seemed to bear no stigma that they cannot prove they're right. A marvelous enigma useful in this kind of fight. And so the tumult rages. There must always be detractors, and past has many pages filled with just such malefactors. Book 5, Revenge. Well, all throughout they hounded me to yield more information, decide diverse theology, resolve interpretation. Though each time I evaded them and mightily resisted, no force on earth dissuaded them, and further they persisted. And so I moved discreetly every time the din increased, then dropped from sight completely and stamped my mail deceased. But lately I've been thinking far more clearly, and I see these fools have made a shrinking, crawling fugitive of me. So Twitch and I will stand and fight. There will be no more running. It's going to hit the fan tonight. I'm taking pen in hand tonight. Here comes the second coming.
Our closing words are from Eudora Welty. Long before I wrote stories, I'm going to change that. Our closing words are from Eudora Welty, a well-known writer. She said, "Long before I wrote stories, I listened for stories. Listening for them is something more acute than listening to them. I suppose it's an early form of participation in what goes on. Listening children know stories are there. When their elders sit and begin, children are just waiting and hoping for one to come out, like a mouse from its hole.
Oh, once I had a little dog, his color it was brown. Taught him for to whistle, to sing and dance and run. His legs they were 14 yards long, his ears so very wide. Around the world in half a day, upon him I would ride. Oh, sing, Terry O'Day, sing, autumn to May. Oh, once I had a little frog, he wore a vest of red. He'd lean upon his silver cane, a top hat on his head. He'd speak of far-off places, of things to see and do, and all the kings and queens he'd met while sailing in a shoe. Oh, sing, Terry O'Day, sing, autumn to May. Oh, once I had a flock of sheep that grazed upon a feather. I'd keep them in a music box from wind and rainy weather. And every day the sun would shine, they'd fly all through the town and bring me back some golden things and candy by the pound. Oh, sing, Terry O'Day, sing, autumn to May. Oh, once I had a downy swan, she was so very frail. I set her on an oyster shell and she hatched me out a snail. That snail had changed into a bird, then the bird to butterfly. And he who tells a bigger tale will have to tell a lie. Oh, sing, Terry O'Day, sing, autumn to May.
Shalom.